people already on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, everyone. Give a very, very, very quick hello. Ta-da!
Hi, everybody.
So, again, I don't, my traveling companions, I don't always put on these videos because these videos are live forever, ever, ever. So that's why we have a private group, a subscriber group. But I would like to welcome everyone to Dawson City in the Yukon. Do you see me smiling? Because this is one of the best places in the world. Here's the gentleman who picked us up at the airport yesterday. And he was also just a first class guy. Brother, how's it going? YouTube Live, you got to say hi. You've been here a year and a half.
Yeah, well, 1 year.
Year and a half, and then you're going to stay for the rest of your life, get married, and have kids here. Good to see you. Hey, see you tomorrow, man. Welcome to the north. So here is the downtown hotel, the Sourdough Saloon, and the Jack London Grill. However, I have to say, the pub wasn't open yesterday at lunchtime. Maybe dinner, but I was out because my traveling companion was dancing in the Can show last night. There's the Bank of British North America. Now, let me be serious for a few minutes. Well, actually, there's someone in period costume. There you are. See? No, I'm just pointing out this lady in period costume. So, what I would like to first of all do is acknowledge an incredible person that we met today. Kelly, who was on the Gold Miners show, but we met literally online, and she works. She's older than me, incredibly fit, works 12-hour shifts every night at a mine here, and came and met us with her friend Red, who I don't think he'd mind me saying is in his 80s and still works a claim. You live for a million years if you live up here. And they were not only just spectacular people to meet, they were so generous of spirit and took us out. And it was such an honor. Danny, hi. Took us out all the way to Discovery Claim and the original dredge number 4. Sorry, there's a car behind me. I just want to show there's a bunch of changes that have happened in Dawson here since I was last here. Hey, we now have bilingual signs. So that is in Klondike, Gwich'in, people of the river, and it's the Yukon River. So you actually have so even Parks Canada is bilingual now. It just makes me, well, multilingual, of course, because French, but it just makes me so proud that we are now embracing reconciliation and this long, painful process. It's if there's one place in the world. Hola, buenos días. Yo puedo hacer el tour en español también, pero estoy a 200 kilómetros al sur del Círculo Ártico. Imagínese, huh? I'm about 200 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle. I'm in Dawson City, obviously so incredibly famous. 1896, 4 prospectors. One of them was a racist, took off, but the other ones found gold, made the claim at 40 Mile. We're only about, 40 miles from the border with Alaska. And we're up here in Dawson City, Yukon. And by the way, not there. By the way, anywhere you dig around in the ground, you're going to find quartz because gold associates with quartz. But we went out with this fabulous person who took us out. Just, wouldn't take any money, by the way. Just incredible person. So, miners are incredible people. So, es un gusto. So, there, ladies and gentlemen, is the mighty Yukon River. If you joined us for a virtual tour a few days ago in Whitehorse, well, it starts about 120 kilometers south of Whitehorse on Lake Bennett and Carcross. Well, it's flowing up to here. This is where the river turns west. So, by the way, that landslide up there is not from mining. That landslide goes back several hundred years, but this is the dome. But this land here, by the way, when I'm talking about indigeneity, see the orange rocks, every child matters. And that is a heavy conversation that needs to be had every time. There is a float plane just coming over in the distance. So Dawson City was the last great rush of humanity. So for all us Turtle Islanders over here, all of us from North America, you need to go back in the history of the West. So 1849, of course, gold is discovered in California, creating not the first, second or third true multicultural city in the world. The oldest one, of course, is Potosi in Bolivia, uh, which goes way back to the 1530s. But then you have the gold rush in 1858, 1860 in British Columbia, and then 1896 when the world was in terrible shape economically, a bit like's happening now, I guess. So there it is, a river highway. Here we are. This is what we're talking about. So this is just such a good map. The Fleuve Yukon. You know, French is, well, every language has its own thing. I love the fact that a river that empties the sea is a fleuve, so a fluvial plain if you speak English. But that's where we were a few days ago. If you go back to my videos, there's Carcross right down there. So the Whitehorse. Whitehorse is where you had Miles Canyon, the Rapids to Whitehorse. This is where Dawson is. And then here's the Ogilvie Mountains. So Tintina Trench, if you measure it one way or another, and it goes all the way down to the Rocky Mountain Trench, but it curves around. This is the Yukon River. It's right up about Fort Yukon. You're right up at the Arctic Circle. There's Old Crow where we were the other day. That's where Tuktoyaktuk is, but that's the other side of the mountains. And it empties out into the Bering Sea. So this is Dawson City. Look at this. If you go back to about 1898, look at that. There was 16, 17,000 people, about 40,000 made it to Skagway coming up here. And how you traveled is you climbed up the Chilkoot Trail, and then you got on these paddle wheelers. And then, and it's so important over here because where they say two cultures meet, people have lived here for thousands of years. I mean, thousands of years, right? And they lived off salmon, particularly. The salmon runs are in really bad shape. They have a ban on now for 7 years, and they're gradually recovering. Amazing when we don't over harvest how things recover. Hi, everyone. So nice to see everyone here. So Dawson City is one of those true, and as you say, it feels like a Wild West town in its own way. But we're so far north, and they're miners here. It's mining culture. Now, I mean, I'm not going to step back from the fact that I'm sure there was, well, I'm not sure. I know there was racism. I know there was all sorts of things, but people were shifting the earth to find gold. That's what they were doing. And they did it. And they found an enormous amount of gold out here, but they're finding it now. And going out this morning with Kelly was just the most incredible thing because it's an active mine operation. Mine is hitting, or gold is hitting record highs at the moment. So that changes every game. Sorry, I keep looking up just because I can hear. I don't think you'll hear it through my headphones, but a float plane is clearly circling around and they come in. So this is they actually have this little tour boat out here, which is, not a bad idea. By the way, they do not have a bridge over the river. So for 3 weeks, either side of the year, you cannot cross the river. The people who live on the other side are cut off or they have their own boats because when it freezes up, then they have an ice highway. And when you drive up on the Dempster Highway all the way to Inuvik, you cross two other rivers. It's really interesting. I can hear the plane. I just can't see it coming in. Oh, sorry, I can. It just landed in the water. There it is. There we go. Yep. So there's a float plane. Of course, the largest fleet of float planes in the world is in Vancouver, British Columbia. But the Klondike plays an incredible role in our psychology as Turtle Islanders, as North Americans. See these paddle wheelers? They had a maximum speed. Took them only about 3 days to get up here from Whitehorse because they went with the current, but it took nearly 5 or 6 to get back to Whitehorse going the other way because they had to go upriver. And they have a maximum speed they can go because if you went any faster, they're just kicking up their own foam. So, uh, but this city is so typical of some of these Wild West kind of frontier places where you have the false facades in the front of the buildings. Some of you may have joined me once upon a time on a tour in Virginia City in Montana. It was the capital of that state for a period of time. It has like 190 people living it, but they have those false fronts, and then of course whatever you throw together at the back of a place. But look at this. There you go, Peel River Aviation. This is what a real Yukoner house would look like because you put sod on the roof because that kept you warm. And that one is actually made of birch, which is interesting. There's the Yukon flag. If it would blow out, you would actually see a dog on top of it. Now, there's a million things to see here, but what is happening over time here through this long and painful process of reconciliation. You have the much stronger indigenous presence, which is so nice to see. So lovely to see bilingual signs. Like really, I was here last May. Many of you joined me, and now the signs, all the Parks Canada are bilingual. So that's wonderful. This is Klondike Visitor Center over here. Unfortunately, closed today, which is a real bummer because it's just such a cool thing. The tour season is incredibly short. If we had taken the ferry over to the other side, we drive up and over to the highest border crossing on Turtle Island with Alaska. And you get a caribou stamp in your passport when you go over there. And then you drive over to Boundary and then to Chicken, Alaska. I have to tell everyone about Chicken. So Chicken was a gold mining town. And they say the nuggets were big enough, they looked like corn. But really they said you had to give your town a name in order to have a post office. And someone said, well, what should we name our town? We said, well, what's that bird that's running around everywhere? Well, it's a ptarmigan, Bill says. Says, well, how do you spell ptarmigan? I don't know. Let's call it a chicken. That's Chicken, Alaska. So now what's this one over here? So this town, I mean, by 1900, it lost two-thirds of its population, but they've still been mining here. There's the old Yukon dock. Look at it. It's just incredible. So let's just do a little loop around. I did a private virtual tour here a while ago, and I, it was for an hour. It was the only time that the company went extra long because there's a million things to see. Sorry, I think the question was, are things open here on a Sunday? Yes, they are. I was actually going to do something religious as it's Sunday today. I think I'll take a collection. Thanks for your contributions. But no, here's little Dawson. Um, Up the hill at the back is the dome, the Midnight Dome. Now, because of our friend Kelly today, we were able to see the most important sites, Discovery Claim down on Rabbit Creek, which is Bonanza Creek. And when we talk about George Mercer Dawson, who incidentally at age 11 had tuberculosis, and he and the roads are dirt because we're nearly at the Arctic Circle, and it just tears everything up. There's some pavement here, but it just doesn't work. So, by the way, that's built in the traditional style of housing. I honestly, I can do 10 different walks here, maybe 20. So, but we're just going to do a main loop. Um, but we went down. So George Mercer Dawson, along with Ogilvy, whose first name I can't remember, and it's the Ogilvy Range north of us. They came with the Geographic Survey of Canada, surveyed this out, and Dawson said that there will be a gold strike along one of the tributaries of the Yukon River up near the range. And he was absolutely correct. He had had tuberculosis as a child and scoliosis in his back, so he was quite a short man with a bent back, and he actually trekked through here. I mean, just incredible. I mean, really remarkable. Um, and they found the gold, of course, and it was the biggest claim since certainly California or Barkerville in British Columbia. And it's because of the quartz that you see everywhere here. It's because these mountains are scoured down through the last glaciation. And so, but look at these, look at this fabulous building over here. Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. I promise it will be dedicated to beer and fish later, probably. The things you need. But all these buildings are built up, and this is, of course, if you joined us in Inuvik and Tuk, right? They're all above ground, so the ground doesn't freeze. This is talking about the Mad Trapper. The Mad Trapper, who did actually kill an RCMP officer, was chased down and caught in Aklavik, which is the old capital. Thank you very much. Was caught and buried in Aklavik, which is the old regional capital that was then replaced with Inuvik, although it's still a town of Aklavik, 700 people. And that's on the western side of the Mackenzie Delta. And then Inuvik's on the eastern side. So just a little, here's Sunday Countries, you're awesome. Just south of here, it's only about 20 kilometers. And then you turn off and you turn north on the Dempster. And now, even though I have not driven the whole Dempster, I was able to see it from the air, which is fantastic. If you have very good eyes, you will see a streak of yellow up on the side of the hill up there. That's actually a road, and that road leads over to the border with Alaska. It's paved on the Canadian side and on the American side. But if you get up there, go around the bend and turn left, you actually get to the golf course. Now, it's a great debate, but they say it's the most northerly golf course in the world with grass greens. All I know now, I'm a very average golfer and I haven't golfed all year. But when you drive, when if you drive dead straight, the ball bounces as if it's on cement because the permafrost. Underneath us is somewhere around 30 meters of permafrost, but the permafrost is melting. That's why these buildings are all propped up, is to keep the ground frozen underneath. So it's, oh, look, I see. So I'm just because these videos are here forever, I'm not going to say everybody's name, but I'm seeing so many people on board that I really know and love. I see someone who, by the way, is going to join us in Mexico this year. And so everyone keep that in mind because we're going to do a trip to Mexico. We're staying at the downtown hotel because it's downtown. Oh, by the way, home hardware is for sale if you'd like to come have a job. Look at this, the Palace Grand Theater. So this is all this incredible architecture that goes back to 1898, 1899. Do you know you arrived, and I've told these stories before, but they're worth telling. So it was actually a journalist in Seattle that made this place famous and said that Seattle is the gateway to the Klondike. So often people think it's Alaska. It's not Alaska, right? It's Canada. And you would travel all the way up here. You would travel up by ship to Skagway. Skagway was lawless. Thank you. Skagway was lawless and out of control. And then you would climb up the Chilkoot Trail. It's the famous images of people walking up this huge incline. I've done a video at the cemetery there, which is worth looking at. Here's 1899. Here's the Palace Grand Theater, Arizona Charlie Meadows. By the way, another book you need to read is The Good Time Girls, by the way, about the women up from the gold rush. Then you climbed all the way up there, and the Mounties controlled the border. And as we say, there was only 5 murders ever during the Klondike Gold Rush, and they caught all 5 murderers, and that's why the Mountie always gets his man. And then they would climb up, and they had to. Then they cut down every tree on Lake Bennett, and that's where the president. Thank you very much. The president of the United States, his grandfather owned a brothel there. And they cut down every tree, and they built rafts, and they floated up to Miles Canyon, which is, of course, now where a white horse is. They said the rapids look like the manes of a white horse. And then they sailed another from there, 350, 400 miles is 600 kilometers. So up to here. And by the time they got here, all the claims were found. Now, that said, and one of the things we learned today, and these are things I know, but to be there with someone who's actually done it, they're going back through the old tillings and they're finding gold all over again. That is incredible. So there's a lot of gold here. The geology is incredible. I also learned, and I need to learn more about this. There's 3 levels of bedrock. This things I just don't know about, so I can't comment on, but they're worth knowing. Klondike Kate's is now the Yukon Health and Social Services Regional Services. I have had breakfast there back in the past, but it's clearly not breakfast anymore. But they do have their cabins. The 3, 4 main streets here. So nice. Look at the post office. I mean, look at these buildings. Can you imagine? There's so many stories. Oh, I'm going to start salivating. See his van coming? Nice high clearance. That is just exactly. That's a beautiful, beautiful van. That's what you want, that kind of clearance for the roads. So at one time, there was a hockey team from here that traveled all the way down by dog sled. Um, and then all the way out to the coast. They would have gone on from Skagway and then took the train across Canada to go get beaten by the Ottawa Senators. Thank you for that question. Have we seen the Northern Lights? We saw them up in Tuck. It actually has been overcast, but look how clear it is today. So I think we have to get up at about 2 a.m. and go out and look at the Northern Lights. Again, the days are super long here. Sunset up north was 10:15. It's probably 9:45, but it's not really dark till midnight. Right? So like I say, it's so much fun just to play the game. Look at where we are on the map. Now, I loved being in Inuvik, flowers all over there, and up in Tuk. Dawson, I've been to. This has got to be my 20th time here. Um, it's probably my 25th time. It's been 2 years guiding tours up here, but again, it stays light so long that you have to go out. It's really In the winter, you see the lights more. Not that they occur more, although we have way more solar activity at the moment, which is another plug. Because in March, I'll be going up to Yellowknife again to go back and see Northern Lights, and I'm sure many of you want to join on that. And you come for the hot weather too. So there's the Dawson Daily News. The old newspapers are fantastic because it really chronicled daily life here during those gold rush days. But what I think what one can lose, and I'm guilty of it too, is we only remember 1898, whereas there's so much more that you can. There's so much more story here because they've been mining on and off forever. Back when I was working here 25 years ago, gold price was only $300 an ounce. Now that gold is at record breaking high. So it really does ebb and flow. And you'll see on the small business that this business supports placer mining supports this business. So great question whether the buildings have been restored. So it's actually a yes and no answer. There's about 1,900 permanent inhabitants here. I always think of it as about 3,000, but it's seasonal workers. It is a national historic site. I almost want to say it's UNESCO. I honestly don't know. There's the Penguin Club. I've got a penguin story I'll tell you all privately one day. But but the so I mean, a lot of these buildings have still been in use or been remodeled. But the one that we walked around on the front was the old Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, and I know it's considered protected, but they've been trying to restore it forever, and it's just not easy to do. Again, whenever you see the base of these things, right? The base of that, underneath that, there's actually no foundation because if you put in a foundation, this is what happens to your building because this is all permafrost. The ground is shifting. So this has been permanently inhabited since 1898, probably 1897. That's probably true. There's the Yukon School of Visual Arts. Um, so, hey, hi. So I was really hoping our friend who took us out today would sign on, but I expect that she's gone to sleep because They, they work all night as a proper Yukoner with the beard. Everyone, thank you. Yes, it is UNESCO. By the way, everyone is friendly. Now that's the North for you anyway. But Yukoners to me are just, and many of you follow me everywhere, but I love the whole world. Um, but up here, I just think there's something magical about these people. From everything, as they say in the North, everything that goes on in the world, you just don't have to care. To, life just didn't work elsewhere in the world and it works here, or you're finding your way, but every person counts. And when we say that historically, that wasn't so true, but every child matters really does gradually come to life. There's diamond tooth Gerties. Oh, yeah, look at the size of those ravens. Those. So one raven. Oh, actually. So yeah, we're actually on the west slope, by the way. So we're on the Arctic drainage basin here. Look at this fabulous building here. It's the old Masonic Lodge. I know the headquarters of Masonry there in London. Just don't really know that much. Every time I've read about Masons, I don't kind of get why it's such a controversial thing, but maybe I need to be enlightened. Um, Actually, I always need to be enlightened. Every day is a learning day. It's a little curled up, but another comment about Yukon is up on that pole up there is actually a pride flag. So they had Yukon Pride recently. And if you happen to be non-binary or trans or anything here, you're still 100% welcome. Another reason why I just have so much respect for this society because everyone's an individual. Everyone contributes, and mining culture is extractive, but they don't use any mercury or anything like that to extract here. So that makes a huge difference as well. I did miss. I'm sorry. I should have gone one of the block over, but you had the Robert Service quote. I looked for the gold and I found it, but turns out the gold wasn't what it's all about. That's I think a really important thing to acknowledge as well. And I am one of these people, as we say, who has been bit by the North. That's the old saying. Now, if I walked up that hill, and I might go for a jog there tomorrow morning, is the cemetery. Um, I know some people are dying to get there. Sorry, I know it's too predictable. But you go up there and there's actually a Northwest Mounted Police. And now again, the Mounties, Northwest Mounted Police, are considered by many Indigenous people to be a colonizing force. So I take nothing away from that. And actually, I will share. You're down by the school. We love you. This is all in honor of the children who were taken from their families and locked in residential schools. So, but also the Northwest Mounted Police in that great Canadian tradition did keep the law up here, and it's part of why Canada has actually been overall quite a successful country because it has stood up um, for law and order, and they were not corrupt. They were colonial, but they were not corrupt. So here's the Dawson City Community Library. So to the earlier question about whether these buildings have been renovated, it's more that they're used and they have been used. This city has flooded at least 5 times in its history. So where we started by the mighty Yukon River is actually a flood break up there, which is really significant. But it totally depends on the snowfall. And your snowfall tells the story. Oh, so now I wish I could pronounce this, and I cannot, but that is in Klondike, and that says, "Welcome. We are all happy to see you." And this is the Robert Service School. Robert Service School recognizes that we teach, learn, and live on the traditional territory of the Klondike, and boy, tonal languages. I tell you, I wish I knew them. Now, if you don't renovate a building, this is much more a 1960s or 70s building. That one looks condemned. Bet you anything is as asbestos in it or something. Uh, but the false front or facade, or as some people say, facade. But I do have to just show. Look what happens when the sun never goes down. Look how much growth you get. Right. Now it is June, July, winter, and we're now here in early June still. But you're getting really close to the closing of the season. Everything. I mean, already a lot of the services have closed down. The tour services. But other things stay open. This is a great tradition we have, see? So this is the caution salmon at work. The stream supports rearing of salmon and trout. See, so this is the school. No, kids are born and raised here. They grow up here. In fact, here's a young person. I just never put camera right in young person's faces. But there's their lovely school. They got loads of activities. So now they're not dark 24 hours here because we are south of the Arctic Circle. But if you get into later December, you're really down to about, I'm not sure, about 45 minutes of light. Now it's there's a big petrol station. I could do about 6 different walks. Just talking about the inclusivity again. There's a beautiful pride flag over there on that gorgeous old house. And that old house, I mean, a lot of these buildings date back to 1899, 1900. And when the gold rush here was kind of over, in that early placer mining, there's tons and tons of gold. Um, but you have to get deep. In the old style, of course, the digging down there were all shafts. And because the ground was frozen, you could dig in. But then they got on all of their bicycles and rode all the way out to Nome, Alaska. Um, uh, Oh, that's interesting. So 2 questions. First of all, how cold does it get at night? Here, this time of year, not cold. I mean, warmer than where I live. I'm only at 500 meters here. And where I live, of course, I live at 1500 meters, so it gets a whole lot colder. Um, but in the winter, you're in a valley here, eh? So this is like minus 40s, proper cold. I've told many of you before that I came up here back when I was doing my master's in beautiful, beautiful but rainy Vancouver. I came up here and not here, but in Klondike Park and dog sledded for 2 weeks, and it was minus 50, so it does get cold. Um, but coming up here, and someone's just asked about looking for a job up here. Yeah, I mean service jobs, obviously, and seasonal work. Although, I mean the mines, if you really want to work hard, what they need apparently always are drivers the great big trucks. They're literally, imagine that hill there, right? So that's what it looks like down at Bonanza Creek, Rabbit Creek, which is, of course, a tributary of the Klondike. They're literally moving mountains, and not figuratively. They're literally moving mountains, one side another, getting down to the bedrock. I need to hang out with more geologists because when they say that 3 levels of bedrock you get out of the quartz, I expect they all tie back both the faults because we're just south of the Tintina Trench here, which is well worth reading about, but also several ice ages, which is what scoured this mountains down, which is where the bedrock is kind of accessible. So I'll just come up here a little ways, and you're going to see what a false facade looks like. You see this log building at the back here, but the front, of course, they build these lovely false facades, which is so typical of these frontier towns. So, hey everyone, you know what? We've already hit 30 minutes. Can you imagine? I have a million other things to show you. See this house here? It's propped right up. That's what it looks like underneath. That's your plumbing and everything above ground. I thought Inuvik was just fantastic for that. I wouldn't say attractive, but the fact is they have everything above ground because you just can't move it below ground. Makes sense. It's just amazing. So hi to everyone. Thank you so much. And as they say every time, feel free to share this on your social media. Share it everywhere you can because gradually we're growing everything. I might. I'm going to head up to the cemetery in the morning, almost for sure. We fly down to Whitehurst tomorrow, and then we fly to Vancouver. Although I don't think we're going to. I think we're going to stay up north forevermore. Um, Yeah, yeah, the airline jobs are actually a really good point. Air North has been 10 out of 10. Um, Lovely, friendly, but also really interesting. And these are twin props. And in fact, I think I have a gentleman on board who's a pilot. I was, we almost couldn't land here because of the fog, and they were, very, very safety conscious as they always are. But coming into this valley, it's the first time I've ever flown in here, seen the airport, and it's a narrow valley. Like you want to be pretty qualified. Oh, by the way, we have to do the sour toe cocktail later, which is the human toe inside a shot of whiskey. That just kind of has to happen. So there's a million things to do. It is Sunday, but I mean, Sunday is quiet, but it's always quiet. There's the red feather. On the corner is the Parks Canada Visitor Center. Million things, solar panels in the distance. There's so much more that both I could tell you about and I could learn about, but I just feel so honored to be here yet again. And so I already know I think I have 2 people signed up to come up north with me next year. So it's you are welcome. I will match that group at exactly 5 people because of space in vehicles and for staying up there in Tuck because there's really like 4 rooms. Ah, there you go. This is the Parks Canada Visitor Center right here. So I think you're very, very welcome, everyone. Listen, um, all the very best. Peace and love from the north. I'm lucky. I mean, I'm honored to travel the world. This is my happy place. Lots of love to everyone. Take care. Be happy and safe.